Welcome to the Hoopsters Super Moms and Dad Show. At Hoopsters, we believe that learning comes best from experiences, be it our own or someone else's. This is why we bring to you an unique parenting stories of super moms and dads who have overcome the odds to raise kids or have had an interesting journey to become a parent. Some of you may relate to these stories and may even find answers to questions or challenges that you are facing as a parent. And that's the whole idea. And today's topic is adoption. Adoption as by choice. We are in conversation with Yamini Ayyagiri, Project Manager, and Srinivas, Senior Manager, Documentation. Okay, guys, welcome to the show. And we begin with the main program.
Good evening.
Tell us something about your journey.
Our journey, okay. So as parents so I think we've always thought about adoption. We went, for a very long time, we said if we wanted to have kids, we're going to adopt one. It's just that it took us a long time to arrive at a decision and then get started on it, primarily because we weren't sure if we wanted to have kids.
And we were busy with our own, got too busy with our own professional lives, enjoying it too much, I suppose.
Yeah. Be a bit loud, Srinivas, please.
Louder, Srinivas.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was just saying that we also got busy with our own professional lives and we're enjoying lives as independent individuals to get into the thinking about parenting for some time, actually.
Okay. Yeah, but then you adopted a child.
That's correct.
So it is parenting, whether it's,
yeah.
Whatever you look at.
Definitely parenting. It's just that we came to a decision a little later, almost 15 years after our marriage. We said, okay, now we want a child, so let's adopt one. But we were very clear even before that if we wanted a child, it's going to be by adoption and not have a biological child. It was a choice that we made right at the beginning of our marriage.
But why? Why did you make a choice? It was a very, it's not a very common choice. I mean, normally people adopt if there's an issue or, there are circumstances.
Correct.
So why did you guys decide to adopt?
So a lot of reasons, actually. One, primarily because, like I said, we were not really sure, Bala, that we wanted children. So, when you want to have children, there are some things that you start thinking about, your age and, medical history, and going through a pregnancy and delivery, etc. So this gave us an option. We said, okay, we don't need to think about it immediately when we are ready mentally. It's a question we kept asking ourselves. Are we ready mentally to be parents in the first place? And then we said, the other thing was, we've always worked with a lot of children. So we knew that we were good with children and there were children out there, who could be part of your family. It was just another way of extending a family, we felt all the time. And so we just decided, okay, whenever we are ready, we'll just go down the path then. It's something we just talked about and it felt right for us, I thought. That's all.
I mean, you are with children and you like children and all. So what was the fear of,
There was no fear. There was absolutely no fear.
Yeah. So what are the doubts?
It's just a question on whether we wanted to be parents in the first place, I think. That's all. And until we were very sure, we said we're not going to have a child, whether it was adopted or biological. And between the two, both of us leaned more towards adoption because it just seemed right for us. That's it.
When you say right for you, what do you mean?
How do I explain it? Okay, when I say right for us, it just seems, so for us, at least for me, it was, I always looked at it as, it didn't really matter to us whether it was a biological child. We had this love in us to give to the child. And we said, how does it really matter whether the child is adopted or you've given birth to the child, right? So that is the only thing that struck us always.
And most of the parents I meet, especially ones without children, okay, or whatever. And the biggest, regret, I don't call it regret, but I think something is bothering them is the fact that they have not experienced motherhood as a, conceiving the child and, taking the child for the 9 months and the delivery and the whole process of, becoming a mother.
Correct.
They seem to sort of miss it. They seem to sort of, missing. In simple words, they miss it.
Yeah.
So did you ever feel that? Did you ever?
Honestly, I never did.
No.
Very honestly, I never did. I didn't dwell on the aspect of, going through pregnancy and delivery. And I never felt that it had to happen that way in order for me to be a mother. At a very early stage in our lives, we actually had to take care of our nephew. So in a sense, we were already parents. Okay. So the important aspect for us was more about parenting rather than just, I'm still a mother. It doesn't matter, that I've adopted a child. I'm still a mother. And that doesn't change whether you give birth to a child, you adopt a child, whatever it might be. Right? Whether, so that hasn't changed at all. I am a mother. He is a father. We are parents. Our concerns for the child are the same as what a biological parent goes through.
But you said almost 15 years before you adopted.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. So what was it? I mean, was it a pressure of career, or was it just tradition, or was there a lot of individuality that you wanted to, groom?
Not really, actually. I would say, for example, let me speak for myself, actually, right? Like Yamini said, very early when we were courting and then we had decided, like she said, that we would, as and when we get married and we would adopt a child. I have been an active sportsman for a long time, and I used to come home late, keep playing games in the office, or over the weekends I would be out away the whole weekend playing the cricket match or something like that. And so there was, I got so used to this idea of, having, we got married at the age of 28. Yeah. We married when we were 28. But then I was active as a sportsman for a pretty long time. And so Yamini first broached the topic of adopting a child itself when we were 30 or 32 first, in fact, at the age of 32. And then we said, let's give ourselves some more time. Then she went to the US for a couple of years, actually. When she came back, and then I kept pushing it back. And I think finally, when we were around, she was 39. We were 39 when we finally said, enough. I think let's start taking the next step towards getting a child. And so it was more, I guess, like I first said, having the freedom, and then I was too happy in my cricket and my sports career to want to actually start becoming a father at more serious level.
So Yamini, was that the reason for you too, that since your husband not at home, who will take care of the child? Was it also?
No, actually not, Bala. I think, like he said, mentally we wanted to be in the right space, and I don't think either of us felt that. When you have a biological child, I think there's societal pressures. One. Two, there's biological pressure. By one particular age, if you have a child, it's good, in terms of health and in terms of the health of the child, the health of the mother, etc. Right? We didn't have that pressure because we had decided that, yes, this is the path we are going to take. So I knew that the day we got the child home, he would be there with me to walk with me on the journey. We had no questions about that. But I think mentally we wanted to be in the right space to be able to say, yes, we are ready now. And so why did it happen at 39? I don't have an answer to that. It's just that, even at that time, both of us were working in different cities, and then we moved back into Hyderabad. And at that point, we started talking about it again. And then we just felt right. Okay, said, okay, now let's start the process, kind of a thing.
But why? Why did you want a child, say, what? You must have been about 40 plus as a 15 years before it?
Yes. Yeah.
So why did you
By the time
suddenly
we got the child home, I was almost 42.
42,
By
yeah.
the time we got the child home, yeah.
So what was the urge at that time? What happened?
Honestly, there was no great urge. I was very happy the way we were. The only thing that I felt at that moment was that if we wanted to do it, we wanted to do it at that time or never at all.
Too late, yeah.
because considering the fact that a child takes about 20 years to get out and be on their own feet, we were already looking at our 60s before the child becomes independent, right? So it was a very practical decision, I would say. I know it seems weird that I'm saying that bringing up a child is about practical, pragmatism rather than emotion, but I think it was more of that for us. We said we are touching 40 now. If we start the process and then we get a child home, we're going to be 41, 42, which we were by the time we got our daughter home. And then we said, if we don't do it now, then we just don't do it ever. That's the decision we just made together. And then we started the process.
It's very interesting. Well, I think one of the things you mentioned about, getting a child is also practicality.
Yes.
I think it's also very important, especially in today's time and age. One really has to look at a bit of practicality. And normally when I speak to a lot of people, they always call it a pressure to become a parent. Yeah. And I hear it very, very often. I hear it very often in terms of, oh my God, my mother-in-law wants to be a grandmother, my mother wants to be a grandmother, That's the pressure for them to have a child, rather than the actual situation, the practicality.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's when they actually go through. It's interesting you brought that up. So when you first announced, I'm sure you announced to the world saying that you want to get adopted. Did you do that?
Right.
We did it with the family first, immediate family first.
So what was the reaction?
They were very happy for us.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
They were happy. Yes, the question did come because why not have your own child and then adopt a second child? That was a question asked. That was, but I had a grandmother actually who was very keen on, I'm the eldest grandson in my house. For her, I was the eldest grandson, and so she wanted to actually. She kept saying, "I'm waiting to see your child," and so that kind of not actually whether. And then when we finally said actually we are adopting, also she was also most happy. Actually, she said that. And she also said it doesn't matter whether it's your child. You're adopting one or it's a biological child. It's your child, and I want to see that. That's so. They were happy.
The great grandmothers and grandmothers of that era, they were actually very, very, open-minded, and they had a lot more acceptance of a lot of things than possible today. Yeah. So you really didn't have to fight the family and have crushes out.
Absolutely not, Bala. The family has been extremely supportive all through.
So what is the process of adoption? How did you go about it?
So when we started the process in 2011, January actually, it was still United Andhra Pradesh. And Andhra Pradesh, you had to approach the Women and Child Welfare Department for application.
9 or 10 started.
After I came back from Bangalore. That's because the orphanages were not given permission for adoption at that time in Andhra Pradesh because of a scam in early 2000. So we applied, we went through the process of application. It requires a lot of paperwork. Essentially, things like the usual stuff like your financial statements, your IT statements, but it also requires stuff like a clearance from the police. And then and then medical tests, because we were already 40 and they wanted to ensure we were in good health. So all of this took us about 15 to 20 days to get it through. And the primary problem that I felt at that time, because I was between jobs, I was doing a lot of running around, is awareness. You go to a police station and ask saying, I need a certificate because I'm applying for adoption. They didn't know what to say in that certificate. They didn't know what to write. They didn't even know if they were authorized to give a certificate. So I went through first I went to the local police station where we live in, the same jurisdiction. Then they sent me to the commissioner's office. Then they sent me to some other place. So finally I again had to come back to the local police station. So it's the awareness that was the biggest problem. I go to a doctor and I say, I need to get my test done because we need to submit this. Then they said they would do an infertility test. So I said, I don't need an infertility test. I'm not adopting because of that, right? I'm adopting because I want to have it. I just want to adopt and no other reason. But these are the things I think that needed to change at that point of time. I'm not sure if it's still the same because it's been 10 years now. But that did rankle a bit at that point of time, to be very honest, in that sense. So you apply, and then what they do is they say that they're going to do a home study. So essentially, a social worker comes home with a huge questionnaire to talk about essentially some of the things that you ask. How did your family react? Is your family supportive? Have you talked to them? And then everything else about your family, your brothers, your sisters, your siblings, everything. So once they file the report is when you go on to a waiting list in the department saying that, now, these people are eligible for adoption. And that took a really long time. Actually, we kept waiting for a year before, and we didn't hear from them at all.
Yeah. Towards the end of 2011, I think we first.
Andhra Pradesh, we never heard actually. We never heard back from them in Andhra Pradesh, to be honest. And that's when I heard about this place in Pune called Arun Ashray. So they said, a friend of mine actually recommended the place, and she said, why don't you approach them and see if they have children for adoption? So we went to Pune then. And that was much faster. So we went through a process of application again. Because in Pune, you can actually apply directly at the orphanages. So we applied there. And then within a month, they said, you can come and see the child. So we went to see the child. And then after that, it was just, they took care of all the process.
3 months. It took another 3 months.
Yeah, another 3 months before we could get her home.
That's very interesting. So what was your source of research? 10 years back, the online wasn't as hot as it's today, information-wise. So yes. What was your source of, information?
A friend of mine, actually not even a friend, an acquaintance of mine who had gone through adoption herself. She was my source of research initially. I went and talked to her, looked at what the papers that she had. And I kept asking her questions on what to do next. Once we approached the Women and Child Welfare Department, they were actually pretty helpful in giving us the information.
So
you think the system is still okay?
Yeah, they had a system in place, but it was only painstakingly slow and tedious. That was
So today, if you are how do you know that a source is authentic? How do you get to understand this?
Today?
Today. Let's look at today.
See, the only reason why we knew the source was authentic was because she had already adopted a child and she had gone through the process. And then the second source that we had was the government department itself. And we just relied on what they had to tell us. Which is why I said the police thing is a harrowing experience because they just didn't know what to do. Finally, it's very funny, but finally they told us, why don't you just write the letter and get it to us and we are going to sign it for you. Yeah.
I understand. Yeah, there's a lot of gap in the awareness factor, but I hope things are improved now.
Hopefully, yes, yeah.
Well, I was speaking to another couple a couple of days back, and they didn't have these kind of issues. They're other, but then, the reason is that everyone's got their own experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, tell me, if today you were to talk to other parents who want to adopt, what would you tell them to do differently from what you did?
So, Bala, after we had adopted our daughter, I actually did a lot of writing on the process itself and the experience itself on Quora. Okay. And a lot of people from across the country have approached me to, talk about it, to how to go about the process, or just talk about their feelings as well. And I've had people from Kerala to Assam contact me on this. Okay. So I've essentially told them that they had to, in their minds, they had to be very clear on why they're doing this. One, if you're not sure, and if both the parents are not on the same page, if you're adopting as a couple, that is, because I've had people who are single parents and wanting to adopt. So if you're not on the same page with this, I said, don't do it. And it's really tough if you both of you are not aligned, I feel. It's just like having a child, if one of you wants a child and the other doesn't, it's not right for the child, I feel. It's not right for the child to go ahead with it.
So what was the pressure you faced in society? I mean, did you face any kind of pressure in society when you got the child?
In the society, when we got the child, no. None at all. None at all. Actually, we've been very lucky in that sense. Our family, our extended family, everyone has been very supportive.
See, I'm sure you told me about what you wrote, an article on adoption and how people contacted you. So what are the kind of variety of problems that they're facing? So you were just lucky that everything fell into place. What about others? What is happening out there?
So a lot of people wanted to adopt because they were not able to conceive and have a child. So that's still the number one reason why people want to adopt. The second thing a lot of people asked me was about the choice of a child. The question they usually ask is, can I pick the child that I want? And that comes with a lot of hidden reasons, in the sense it's not about just how the child looks. It's also about, do I get to know the caste of the child? Do I know anything about the parents of the child? Questions to that extent. So that's the second thing. Third, of course, a lot of people ask about is the age of the child. Can I adopt an infant? And a lot of people still think it's okay to, go to a hospital and just get a child home. And I've told them, no, it's not okay to do that. Just follow the legal process. It's just much simpler, right? There are laws in place. There is a system in place which actually works, which we were very surprised to see it works. It may be, like Srinivas rightly pointed out, it may be painstakingly slow, but it does work.
What are the challenges they face? I mean, this is why they want to adopt a child, but what are the challenges that they face?
So I've spoken to some parents, Bala, that said that, say the woman wants to adopt, but the husband is against it. Mainly because they think they have this notion of, there's a genetic pool and it gets, I don't know where the child is coming from, what kind of characteristics they have, what they'll turn out into, and I'm not very happy with it kind of statements. That's, I think, the biggest challenge some of the people face. And that extends to support from the family. I know still a lot of people who said, my mother-in-law is against the idea, for instance. So I think that's the biggest thing, just one is just the two of them being aligned as to why they want to do this and that they really want to go ahead. Second is getting support from the extended family.
What was your experience in the early days of having got a child? How old was the child when you got her?
She was eight months old when we got her home. Yeah.
How was the experience the first 2 years?
The first 2 months were horrible. The first 2 months were horrible for me. It suddenly changed my life completely. And Srinivas had to go on an official trip immediately. So I was alone. Yeah, 2 trips immediately. And I was alone with her at home. And a lot of people don't believe me, but I did go through a postpartum depression because of that. I went through major depression because suddenly there was this tiny little bundle who took away all my time. I didn't know whether I was doing the right thing. There was a lot of doubts. And I think as adoptive parents in the initial stages, you tend to question yourself a lot because you think it doesn't come naturally, the whole parenting process. The parenting process doesn't come naturally. I think it's a learning process.
Absolutely.
It's a total learning process for, and I just had no time for myself suddenly, from being this person who could sit down with a book for hours together and not get disturbed by anybody, to this wailing baby who was like demanding my attention all the time. It was terrible the first 2 months, and it didn't come easy. The love didn't come easy. The affection didn't come easily. It just was not easy. It took me a while, I think almost 6 months before I could get get over the whole feeling of sadness. And I think it's primarily because of the, I think we tend to get overwhelmed by the whole situation initially. You know, you also put a lot of pressure on yourself because you want to do the right thing by the child. So I think it was more of that. So the first 2 months were terrible. It took me 6 months to get used to her. And then it's been a joy, frankly speaking. She's taught me how to be a mother along the way. I just had to learn from her.
So how did you get over your depression or your anxiety or whatever it was?
It's a choice that I made, right? It's a choice I made to get her home. So I had to, and of course I had support from him and my mother. That was the biggest thing, of course. But for me, internally, it was more about, okay, I made this choice. I decided, it's not like we just got pregnant by accident and we have a child now. It wasn't like that. We had decided very consciously that we were going to get a child home.
The network is gone. I think just hold on.
So it was that choice, I think. So over the years, I've been a person. Hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, but your visual is frozen.
Is that better?
Yeah, much better. Yeah.
Okay.
So Srinivas, what was your first 2 months stuff as a father? And you ran away happily. That's a different story. But
Yeah.
huh?
We got our daughter home in May, and 10 days after she came home, or 2 weeks after she came home, I had to go out to Europe. And then that was a 3-week trip. After I came back again, I had to go to the US in August. So the first 3 months, I was effectively gone for almost a month or more. I wasn't there actually. And yes, she took more time to like me, I would, or to reach out to me, I felt actually, because maybe, she grew up the first 6 to 7 months of her life. She had only been seeing women, or she was with other kids, other orphans, something like that.
Very interesting.
So she would cling to Yamini a lot. She would cling, and so even if I reached out to her, and interestingly, the first time when we went to the place to actually see her, the kid, and she just came into my arms very naturally, and then she was having a cold, and that image is still vivid in my mind actually. She had a cold, and I picked her, and she rubbed her nose all over my shoulder, and she bowled me over then and there actually. That was the but once we came home, she refused to come to me for almost a month, 2 months. It didn't help that I wasn't there also, right? Yeah, but I think she warmed to me actually, and she's a very fun girl, and I mean, even as a baby actually, once she got used to the whole surroundings and the people and the house and all that, she would once she started crawling, she would explore, and then since then it has been good. But first 2 months,
did it put a strain on your relationship as husband and wife?
I don't know if Yamini was actually upset with me at the time, because I was away, and she had to deal with a lot of this with herself, by herself. And she did mention a couple of times to me that, she's not feeling well, or she was down and kind of thing. But other than moral support, I didn't really know what else could I have offered at that time, and I was there. But other than
like you pointed out, Bala, when my daughter came home, she was for some reason very wary of men. She just would not go to any man at all, and that lasted for almost
4 years.
Apart from Srinivas, it lasted for almost 3 to 4 years. With women, she was very good. She would naturally go to them, and then she was okay with them. But men, she just would not go. She would just turn her face away as soon as she saw a man. It was that, so that put a lot of pressure on me, because she just clung to me like a leech. She just would not let go of me. So like he said, I think, he was not around. Maybe, that was true, but he was out on work. because she would not even go to him, there were nights that I had to hold her and then take care of her the whole night in initial stages. And you tell yourself that, you're prepared for this, but I think you're not really prepared until you go through the experience. Because you don't know what it throws at you at that point of time. You're sleep deprived. You'd want to rest, but there's this baby who wants attention.
Did you ever regret at that point of time? Anytime?
No, I never regretted it. I questioned it, not the choice itself, but I questioned my role as a parent. What was I doing? Was I doing it right? Why is she still crying if I'm doing it right? I questioned my ability as a mother, but I did not regret the choice itself, ever.
So, Srinivas, how did you handle Yamini? I mean, it must be tough on you also. Because it's a factor.
That's true. But one actually did help that my mother-in-law was there for some time and with us when we got the child home, and she was there for some time. She was there kind of maybe as a moral support, but and it didn't help that the child was clinging to Yamini more, and but now that I look back, I really don't know whether I was much help. And in fact, now you are making me question, was I of any help at all to you in the first place out there?
Yeah.
I do remember she cried once or twice too, but that's because she felt I'm a bad mother. That was more so all that I could say, put my arms around her and tell, no, you are doing good. We just need to, she will grow out of it. Smriti was actually, she used to fall sick quite a lot actually. I think most babies do, I don't know. This one used to, every second week she would get a cold or cough, and then she would get a fever and all that. And we supported the entire pharma industry because of that. One entire segment of that industry we supported the first 4-5 years. So once she got used to me and all, because I would be the one who would be rushing her to hospital most of the time. Unless she was critically sick, I used to take her to hospital most of the time. And that way that's the only help I think I was able to give to Yamini most of the time. And she would play with me once. And once she got used to me, once she turned 1, she started playing with me, and she still does. She spends most of the time.
You still regret the fact she never came to you in the early stages, don't you?
First 2, 3.
There is something inside who says, how can she not come to me?
I did. In fact, I used to be a kind of...
I can totally visualize that. Trust me.
No, that was especially because, like he said, the first time we went to see her, she actually reached out to him.
I know.
Yeah.
And then after that, she just refused to go to him suddenly. So he was like, why? What is happening here?
So I could think of something.
So it's nice. I think it's a brilliant feeling to have, where there is a bit of this small possessiveness and jealousy, and, I'm not saying negatively, it's positive, She's going to mom more than going to me, and, it's wonderful. I think it should be there if you ask me.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
It should be there. So what's your daughter's name, by the way?
Smriti.
Smriti.
Yeah.
Okay.
Smriti. Yeah.
So when Smriti was older and she was going to school and all that, any issues you faced? Did you have to write Adoptive? The school rules don't require that?
No, we didn't. I mean, not with the school itself. Of course, we did not select a mainstream school to send her to. We picked a school that works on the Waldorf system of education. It's a slightly different pedagogical philosophy, basically, because they believe in letting the child learn through gestures and experience and more than books.
It's
primarily.
Bookish,
and I think that was good for her because she took time to adjust. So the first 3 years. Sorry, you want to?
Sorry, it helped that she was going to creche or daycare.
Initially, yeah, we did send her to daycare initially. For, after she turned 1. Like I said, she was not a very social kid. She would want to stay with people that she is familiar and comfortable with. And so that the first experience was the daycare, definitely. And then we took her to the school. So initially, first, I think 1 week, she cried every day. She just would not want to go. I had to sit in the class with her every day for 1 week. And even after that, for almost 3-4 months, Srinivas had to go. He wouldn't stay in the class, but he would stay in the school until the school finished. So that pressure was there, but from the school itself, we had no issues. The school was very good. There was absolutely no problem at all from the school itself.
So officially, you don't have to tell that she adopted the world, right?
No, you don't have to mention anything at all. Absolutely no.
Just going back to your adoption, did you know about who her parents were and etc.? You get to know a bit of a past, or don't you get to know anything about it?
We don't know Bala because she was found abandoned. So we don't know anything about her parents. In India, I don't know what the law says about knowing the biological parents, to be very honest. So when we go through the court, right, we have to go to the court to finalize the adoption deed. When we went through the court, that's the first time I read up the entire history about, because it's mentioned in the deed actually, where she was found, how she was found, etc. So that's the first time we actually read up. She was found abandoned in a railway station. When they found her, they do some medical tests and they just determined she was about a week old. So that's the only thing we know. We don't have. So they do put a notice out asking, saying that so and so child was found, and if anybody's parents can come and claim the child. But I don't think anybody ever did. So then that's when they released the child to adoption. So we have absolutely no clue, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, we never asked actually, to be honest.
We weren't, we didn't try to find out also, because once this Arunashray place, the lady, the husband, the couple who run it, we did cursory mention, we asked actually, do we know anything about the parents of the child? And before we got her, actually, we were asked to take her to some medical tests and all that in Pune. Actually, we did one whole day running around Pune, a couple of places getting tests. And the question was asked, in fact, when we go to a doctor, who are our parents? Do we know anything about our parents? And so that's when we asked the couple at the orphanage. And there's the same answer that, we found her about a week. We found her abandoned, and from her age, we assume that she's about a week old. That's all. And in fact, we share her birthday because her birthday, it was around, she was found on the day of that lady's birthday, actually, or something like that. So at the birthday also, so we celebrate the same. So, but even they don't know much about her, or if they do know and they didn't tell us, it didn't matter to us actually.
How old is she now?
She's 9.5.
9.5.
She's 9.5. Have you told her about?
Yes.
How did you tell her? I think because it's the toughest thing as far as adoption is concerned. Especially when the second child is a, adopted child, or the first child is adopted, second child is biological. The toughest part, I feel, is for a parent to tell the child.
Right.
It's a very delicate age also. You don't know whether it's too early or too late.
Correct.
So how did you go about it?
So from the beginning, right, I've always told her stories of, say, somebody like Krishna, Karna, Sita, all of who were adopted, right? I've always told her these stories, and she has this whole notion of, two parents, two mothers, more than two parents in her mind. So that's how we started it, to be honest. That's how I started telling her. I don't think she really understood the concept of adoption at that time, because she was too young. She was barely 3 or 4 years old. So she really didn't understand the concept, but she knew these stories. The second thing that happened was this acquaintance that I was talking about, who eventually became a very good friend of mine, who had adopted herself. So we would visit them a lot. So her children are older to Smriti. And that helped, because they would have, so the oldest one was actually just learning about her own adoption at that time. And to be honest, she's the one who used the word with Smriti the first time. I didn't use it. I thought there was still time for that, but when she was about 5 years old, this girl did tell her, about adoption. So for a very long time, she did not have any questions. Just in the last couple of years, she's been asking me some questions. Like suddenly she would say, if my mother sees me now, she wouldn't know who I am because I've changed so much. So one day she told me that. I said, no, yeah, that is true because it's been a long time. So, they'll say a process where you have to go through getting to know one another again. So one day she also asked me, do you know who my mother is? And I said, no, I do not. I don't know who your mother is. And there have been questions on and off, but we've never made it a big deal. So we've always said, we've just made it seem like it's another way of, getting a child home. So what is wrong in it? And that's how she looks at it now.
Actually, it did help. Yeah, like Yamini said, that we know of at least 2-3 other
couples who
who have
through
adopted
the process,
and who have. So she knows. She sees it as quite same. I don't think she sees it any different or.
Do you think there's a change in her after she has come to know she's adopted? Do you feel anything?
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all. I do want to say one thing though. So she has a friend
Yamini, come slightly to your right.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't know if it was psychologically affecting her at this, because I don't think she actually vocalized it. But there was a friend, who got to know from her mother that Smriti was adopted. And she used it as a, I mean, she's very young, so I should not be, saying anything against her. But I think she didn't understand what the thing was. So she kept telling Smriti, I'm going to tell everybody at school. And every day Smriti would come back and tell me, she's saying that she'll tell people at school. Then I had to actually have a conversation with her saying, it's okay, it doesn't matter. It's okay even if you tell everybody at school. There's no reason for you to say it, but if you want to say it also, it's okay. So she did go through, this whole thing. She wants to tell people kind of, I don't think it was a fear, but she didn't understand why anybody would want to go and tell anyone about it. So she went through it for a couple of months, but then she's been fine after that. She's just been okay.
Or is she closer to you or closer to Srinivas?
Right now, she's closer to me.
Right now, I like that.
Teenagers coming and mothers and daughters don't get along.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are anything you want to tell people who want to adopt? Anything?
I think it's phenomenal way of extending one's family. It's a phenomenal way. There's a lot of joy in the whole process. It's no different from, except for the fact that you do not go through the biological changes in your body. There's no difference at all. It doesn't even strike me at times. Why at times? It actually doesn't ever strike me that I have not given birth to her. It just doesn't seem to matter at all. For me, she is my daughter, and that is what counts.
Yes, you had something to say?
I would still say that, if you make the choice early, now having gone through the 10 years and all that, the amount of energy that is required to actually run with her, play with her, and the amount she wants to play so much with, I would still say, go ahead and start the adoption process. If you have decided to adopt, start the process early. Be a parent by the time you're 30, 35. Don't wait till you're 45, 50. That your child will still want to run and play with you, and you will need to have the energy. And
So, Bala, this is one thing we still differ on. I think it's
hold on. You're frozen. Hold on. Don't try this.
Okay to be an older parent.
Wait.
Because they
Wait. Okay, repeat it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, repeat that. We lost you.
I agree that.
I said there's just this one with Srinivas. Yeah. It's okay to be an older parent, I feel, because I think you have a lot more patience with a child, a lot more understanding, having seen a lot more in life. One, financially, I think you're at a better place, to be able to provide for the child as well. See, like I took a break I didn't take a break, but I cut down on my work after we got Smriti home. I worked part-time for almost 9 years. I was able to do that because I think in terms of my career as well as in terms of our finances, we were at a better place in life. Early on, I think there's still a pressure on you to earn your living and all that. So I think those are the pluses when you're an older parent. Yeah, energy levels are low, but I think energy levels can be made up for in a lot of different ways. I don't feel it, okay. I feel like pretty good, pretty good about being an older parent actually. So it gave me a time to live my life on my terms for a very long time, and now it's given me the time to be with her, spend time with her also. Given where I am in my life right now professionally as well.
Are you worried about the future?
Sometimes, yes, considering that, we are 50 now. Yeah, it does play on my mind at times because we're going to be 60 by the time she even gets to be 18. But no, not so much, to be very honest. I have a great family, and I know that they'll always be there for her. They love her, they adore her to, I don't know, to the heights. So yeah, I'm not too worried, to be very honest.
I think both of you, it was absolutely wonderful talking to you guys. It was nice to see both of you share a very similar energy, which is nice. There's not much of a differences. I don't see that anything which was false out there. It felt very good listening to you. Anything special you want to tell to people out there? And so we can, anything?
I'd say think about it. Think about adoption. I would say that, don't fall for, all the things that you hear in society about. Yes. I've read answers on Quora that said an adopted child will always have problems, which is not true. Even a biological child has problems. So think about it, rationalize it for yourself, then make a decision.
Do you think the stigma will ever go in the society? There is a stigma, even though people don't open up.
It's changing. It's definitely changing in the urban areas. But will it ever go? I'm not sure it will happen in my lifetime.
What do you think is required to create an ecosystem for adoptive parents? There's a lot of social media stuff, groups, etc., etc. How useful are they? How, or what is it you think you require to create? I mean, that's what Hoopster is trying to work on. We are trying to see if we can create the ecosystem which doesn't exist.
That's good.
Actually, that is wonderful. I think, when we started, for example, having this friend of mine really helped. To be able to talk to her about, things, and not just the process itself, a lot of other questions that you might have in the process, right? So having an ecosystem definitely helps. Like-minded people, a community where you can go and maybe use it as like just a place to vent out sometimes, right? I think all parents need that, not just adoptive parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then the second biggest thing I would say is probably the family.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of difference, honestly speaking. Just having family aligned with what you feel, I think is very important. So I think, if you're planning to adopt, work on the family first, I would say.
Okay, so very interesting. Something I just thought of. What would your advice be to the families, the surrounding families? See, we keep talking about these two people who want to adopt. But I think a very clear message needs to go to that extended family.
Families need to be.
Yes. So what would you like to tell them?
I would like to say, give it a chance. Don't dismiss it saying that they're not your biological children. This whole notion of genes making a difference, I don't believe in it. I'm totally about nurture over nature.
You know what? You got something strong to say. How should the extended family react? How should they accept? Or what should their behavior be?
No, if the family is supportive, like it happened luckily in our case, I think it helps, and it's okay. There are a lot of children out there. And it's not just about having your own child, but any child actually. Like Yamini said earlier on, it's not just about giving birth, but being a parent is a whole lot of things. You can always adopt and still be a just as natural a parent as you are to a child you are given birth to. So we can make the world a much better place if more people step forward and adopt, I feel.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it is required out there.
And yeah, and the work that you said you are doing, that's creating an ecosystem, that's very helpful. It's actually, I think you're doing this. You'll be doing a wonderful job if you are able to reach out to more people, and
So can you guys help me with it? Can you tell me what is required? Can we get those basic things going? It will be small. It can't be a huge thing at where we come from. But we need to start this. Our focus is on adoptive parenting, single parenting, and special needs parenting.
So I think creating awareness is the primary thing, Bala, because there are a lot of people who are not very sure about what it means.
Yes, I know.
Okay. So I like the people who reached out to me over the years. It's more about because they're confused. They don't know how to tell their family, talk to their family, for instance. How do they even approach something like this? I think that is the most important thing. Have people talk about it more. I don't see why it has to be hidden away. Let your child know they're adopted. I think I've seen parents who say, no, we're not sure if we should tell our child. Please don't do that. Once you hide it, you're making it seem as though it's a wrong thing to do, which it is not.
You said something interesting. How should a person tell their family that they're going to adopt?
We were just forthright. In fact, we just went through the application process and we did a call with everyone and we just said, okay, guys, we've just finished this application process. We're thinking of adopting. Was
okay. Keep that aside. The normal thing would be, I'm just saying general situation. It's not the only situation. Is the woman wants to adopt, normal cases, okay, and then she tells her husband. There's enough confusion there itself. Then once they both agree, they have to go and tell their in-laws and parents and the other rigmarole,
Correct.
So how does that woman, let's begin from woman. I'm sure a man also would want, but let's go more on this. How should a woman even talk to her husband about it?
So from what I've seen around us, Bala, a lot of people still go through adoption because they're not able to conceive.
Correct.
For some medical reason or other.
Correct.
So I think usually it happens that, okay, since we're not able to have a child, let's adopt a child. That's how it starts.
Correct.
Usually that's the way it is. In our case, it was slightly different because they said, okay, now if we want to do it, let's do it now. It was more of that. The first time we talked about it, like Srinivas said, we were still in our mid-30s or so. But that time, we just didn't feel it was a right time or space to do it. So we just put it off by a few more years. But how did I bring it up? It was more in terms of, okay, why don't we start thinking about it at least? Maybe there is something to it there.
Because you talked about most of the times you go for adoption when there is no chance of, conceiving.
Yeah.
Okay? But the problem there is the man, I'm sorry to bring a man again and again here, he does not accept that he is at fault.
Absolutely. I agree.
I've been working on this, and whether it's a educated society, uneducated, or whatever class of society you're talking about, the issue is sin.
Agreed.
That stigma, that harrowing thought process exists. So how does one, isn't it complex to bring about the subject?
To answer that. Yeah, it is very complex. I agree with you on that. That requires a mindset change, I think, more than anything else. I would say that's a bigger thing than just talking about adoption. Because there's a lot more involved there. This patriarchal society that we are living in, the attachment given to a man's virility as against having a child. You're virile only because you have a child, which is like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So all of that has to change in order to address that problem.
It's a chain of situations, you know. It's, I mean, you'll be just lucky that you are thinking differently. But the more we talk to people, the more we realize that I think we are very blessed to be in a peer group where we are happy. You know, because the kind of situations people go through,
yes,
it's just not funny.
It's not funny. I agree with you on that. Yeah.
Maybe I got lucky. Nobody ever asked that question.
Yeah, he says you want to say that.
No, you're itching to say something. What was it?
No. I was regarding your question about the man being at fault or not. Maybe like I just said, we got lucky that nobody in my family ever questioned us or asked us.
No, that's not true.
Really?
Funnily, Bala, that question was asked when we did get Smriti home. I was asked the question, why did you not try IVF? So there's already an assumption that something is wrong with me.
Okay.
That question was never asked to Srinivas. So yeah, I've had to deal with those questions, but it's not something that I did not expect. So I just said, no, we did not want to go through it because there was not a problem. It's just that we didn't want to have a biological child. It's that notion that you do not want to have a biological child is something people don't understand.
Yes.
They think it's a natural instinct. And I'm questioning that instinct. I'm saying it is not natural. I do not see it as a natural thing. Right? And maybe we don't question that enough. Just like we do not question, what a man feels about his own virility, for instance, right? I think those are the questions that need to be asked.
No, the thing is we are so conditioned that if a woman does not feel the instinct of motherhood at a particular stage, something is wrong.
Something is wrong.
You know, it's almost like brainwashed. So you start feeling guilty that, oh my God, I'm not really feeling like a mother right now or wanting to be a mother right now. Yeah. I think it's a lot of brainwashing the society has done to us, or the way we have been tuned, which, I'm also working in.
True.
Thank you very much, Srinivas. Thank you very much.